Janice Pollard, Director of Marketing at Best Life Brands. That is the parent company to ComForCare, which is an in-home caregiving service. We have CarePatrol, which is senior placement, and Blue Moon Estate Sales. So I have my panelists here joining me. I'll introduce them in a little bit, but I think that most of you are here because senior care is on your radar in some way, right? We know that people are living longer than ever, and people need ongoing care and resources, and that can vary quite a bit in what that looks like. And we know that families are strapped to not only take care of their aging parents and work and take care of their kids and try to find time to juggle all of this, right? So the industry is surging, it's booming, there is no slowdown. We just wanted to take some time to address what this industry looks like, how you might take part of it, and even start a meaningful business for yourself or your family. So the way these map back to seniors at various stages of life. You're in your early 60s and you're starting to think about retirement, and maybe you lived in your house for a long time and you've got a bunch of stuff and you're like, oh, maybe I'll have an estate sale and get a big wad of cash and fund my next chapter. Or maybe you're in your 70s and you're like, okay, I still really love where I live. I love my community. I want to stay here as long as possible, but I might need a little bit more help to stay independent. And then as you progress, 80s, 90s, and beyond, maybe it gets a little trickier to stay at home and do so safely without putting your spouse or yourself at risk for safety reasons. So we're going to talk about how all those solutions of our brands map back to those life stages. And to do that, I have my panelists. So I'd like to introduce you to Kim Youngbeck, Luc Deslauriers, Leah Harper, and JJ Sorrenti. So you guys, I'm so excited that you joined me tonight. I'm poised for a rich conversation with all of you. And then of course, for our attendees, I'd love for you to jump in with your questions, and we'll get to those very quickly, because this is really about you. We want to address what's on your mind as we address some of the key questions and topics that come up, right? So Leah, I thought a good place to start would be with you for Blue Moon, right? I know you talk to people all the time about the Blue Moon business model, so I was hoping you could give our audience just a taste of what that looks like.
I do. Thank you, Janice. I love to talk about Blue Moon. Guys, this is a really unique concept, right? And I love the freedom and flexibility that this brand affords to its owners. It's tremendous. Blue Moon Estate Sales is at the forefront of an industry that's not yet saturated. It can be home-based. It can be semi-absentee as long as there's still a full-time dedicated effort. You can get really creative with your staffing infrastructure here. Long-term goal for Blue Moon owners is to get their asset up and running, out there providing services to their community, and then they can continue to pursue additional streams of revenue. So the versatility of this brand is wonderful. I think it's a common misconception that they believe estate sales only take place in the event of the passing of a loved one. Actually, for us, 80% of our owners' clientele are retirees. That's your baby boomers. It's your largest targeted audience in the US. But by no means are you limited to that demographic as well. So a lot of versatility here. And I'm always asked, what do estate sales look like precisely? And it is the goal of our owners to clear 90 to 95% of content in a homeowner's home for a 60% return. Because of the type of need that we meet, to the degree of the magnitude and the highest return for our homeowner, the best option out there for any similar services that they could possibly enlist. There's a tremendous reward component to this brand for our owners, and it allows us to stand in the gap, bring peace of mind, regardless of where our clientele are at with a life transition. Very much a feel-good component and in what we do, and it provides a very strong sense of community for our owners as well.
That's so awesome. There's so many layers to that too and we could talk about Blue Moon, and there's so much momentum around that brand, all the brands, but thank you for that. And then Kim, ComForCare, obviously in-home care is on fire. So if you want to, can you tell us a little bit about that model?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Janice. So, yeah, I mean, it's home care, providing services for people in their own homes. And, our model is built around helping people remain as independent as possible. Most people's options are, to stay at home as you start aging. I mean, I don't think any of us are immune to experiencing this. I mean, we're going through it with my grandmother right now. She's 89 years old, and it's unsafe at this point. She fell, broke her wrist, drove herself to the urgent care, drove herself home, and we're having these conversations in my own family. But most people want to remain at home and continue to keep that level of independence. And that's exactly what ComForCare offers, is support and services in the home, assistance with daily living, and then also even options for private duty nursing. So being able to help keep people independent.
Yeah, yeah. Luke, when I tell people about CarePatrol, they don't even realize this service is out there, let alone it can be turned into a business, right? And when I get feedback from people, the thing I hear the most is, oh my gosh, if I had only known about CarePatrol when I went through this with my other parent or my grandparent or a family member, right? So tell us about how that works.
No, absolutely. And, we think of ourselves as a free community service because sometimes it's no longer feasible to be cared for at home. We're dealing with the next level of continuum of care. So we're dealing with people who need to be in independent living facilities, assisted living facilities, or memory care facilities. And it's a hard world to navigate. So what we provide is a service that will help the families come up with the best, safest, most appropriate solution for them. And we do this free of charge to the families. Now, the business side of it is that these facilities, their priority is to fill beds, and they will gladly pay a referral fee equal to the first month's rent. And these rents vary from $3,000 a month to $15,000 a month. So you can run a business that does a great community service, helps these families free of charge, and still have a very good income coming in.
Right. I mean, I'm no math whiz, but I like that math, and that sounds really interesting. You think about how that could add up, and we'll get to the heart for that business in a minute, but that's, it's definitely an attractive feature for sure. Mm-hmm. So I think, if people are joining tonight because they've had this seed of an idea, they've always want to maybe start their own business, there can be this stumbling block of, okay, well, I come from, nursing, or I come from sales, or I come from this one line of business. I don't know finance. I don't know technology. I don't know marketing. I don't know, human resources. I don't want to screw anything up. Right. And so I feel like that could hold people back. And when we talk about franchising, that's where it can really become your best friend. And, I think for people that hear the word franchising and they're like, oh, wait, you mean McDonald's or Tropical Smoothie Cafe or something like that? Or, it's everybody wearing the same logo and chanting the company slogan at some convention, it's kind of hilarious. But it really is the building block of all those support structures that you need to be successful, right? And so, JJ, when, you've got a long history in franchising, how would you navigate people when it comes to, hey, I've had this small business idea, but I never really considered franchising, either because it never dawned on them or because they just thought it was this whole other thing?
Yeah, I wish a long history of something didn't come with all this gray hair. That would be better. It would be a bad combination. So listen, I think the beautiful part about franchising is that you don't have to have a lot of experience in the brand that you're thinking about or in the industry that you're thinking about. You just have to have a desire to be on your own. And that does take a special person. You do have to be interested in not being in corporate America anymore. And I know those people that move away from corporate America think that's just second nature, but there are, myself, I enjoy being in corporate America, but there are a lot of people that don't want to be there anymore. And so the nice thing about franchising is if you get involved in a good franchise, they have a great brand, or they have a brand, they have an operating system that you can follow, and then they provide support to you. And those are three main components of any good franchise business. The key there, though, to your point, Janice, it's not about pulling out a manual and, you know, at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, you do X, Y, Z, and then at 10 o'clock, you do ABC. There's an operation to the business. Customers are involved, and once humans get involved, things go off into tangents. But the franchisor can help a franchisee understand how to deal with those things. And then there's always this little bit of local relevance that always happens in the marketplace based on whichever brand you're in. So if you're in Blue Moon Estate Sales, you know, it's a lot easier to have estate sales in the South right now because it's wintertime. But the people in Minnesota and the people in Toledo, our franchisees there, are having a great winter. So they figure it out, and they know because we've coached them on how to hold an estate sale in the northern climate. So I think being locally relevant through a franchise gives anybody the opportunity to be really successful as long as that's what you're interested in doing, which is being in business for yourself.
Right. So Kim, I want to touch on ComForCare. We talked about the business model a little bit, but why do you think people are drawn to in-home care as, you know, as a franchise owner, and what makes ComForCare unique in this growing market where you see a lot of competitors, frankly?
Yeah, I mean, it is by far one of the most fragmented industries out there. There are definitely a lot of home care brands. People are drawn to the industry because it's a do well by doing good model. I mean, there's opportunity to make huge revenue helping people, and you've got to have a heart for it. You've got to have a passion for it. But when those two things go hand in hand, I mean, our top office did over $15 million in one territory. And as I mentioned earlier, everybody's got some level of a personal experience with this. We all have loved ones that are aging. And at some point, if we're lucky enough to still be here, we'll be going through these things too, and these choices. You know, what ComForCare brings to the table, you know, besides this awesome team is, you know, a lot of really unique programs and also some diversified revenue streams that I have not really seen. They're kind of new and fresh. And, you know, one of the things we look at and consider is you've got millions of Americans that live in retirement communities, and helping people continue to age in place there without having to move or relocate, and bringing services to them. We've got over 60 on-site locations where our owners are actually staffing one of those buildings, renting an office space, and as a third party providing custom tailored, more cost-effective and affordable services for their residents. And then programs having to do with dementia care, with music, fall risk reduction. I mean, that's the number one reason seniors end up in the ER, and it's the number one cost center for every hospital. So, I mean, people are drawn to the industry by far and large because A, it's growing so much, but also because it's so deeply personal. And what ComForCare brings are a lot of the tools and resources to really do it the right way.
Yeah. I even think about ComForCare sometimes as its own continuum of care, because there's such a wide range of needs in in-home care. Like you talked about the on-site model. People are not really in their home. They're in a assisted living or independent living, and ComForCare comes into that home. And then, you know, everything from I'm mostly independent, but I need a little bit of help, all the way up to dementia care, which those have layers too, right? And so I feel like that is such a rich and deep need, and it could really be so scalable and so anything.
Absolutely. And the option to go into private duty nursing too, which some of our owners do, some of them don't, but you have that flexibility to kind of build and adjust the model for what works for you and what your goals are for the model.
Hey, Kim, so back to the point that I was talking about earlier, Janice asked me, like, that seems awfully specialized, right? ComForCare, like, I mean, I have senior parents, thankfully they're still independent, but when it comes to the time where someone's going to have to take care of them, I'm not capable. I'm certainly not skilled enough. So how do our franchisees kind of learn that? You mentioned some of them go off into tangents. Are any of them nurses or any of them doctors to start? And how do they learn that?
No, actually, that's a great question. You know, our founder was a CPA.
Right.
A lot of our owners don't have any formal background in home care or health care. That's where we come in, because you can have the heart and the desire, and it can seem really intimidating looking at this industry, being like, well, I don't have any background in that. That's where we come in and we help you, having like business acumen, caring about people, being a good communicator, a good leader. Those are the things that translate well to this business, being a good networker. But no, nobody has to have a background in that. And I don't know exactly what percentage of our owners do, but it's definitely less than half by far.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned this a while back that it's, when you bring the emotion and the passion to the brand, you figure out the middle, you figure out like how you're going to make money. And then it always falls back to the emotion side. Like you do this for a reason because you picked a brand that is in your heart. It's going to be, something that you want to do and then, but to JJ's point, the rest will fall into place. Right.
Yeah. I mean, one of the brands, we've all got experience in other brands too. Thankfully, I've not worked in too many brands, but when I joined a company that was in sort of after school tutoring, I thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to find enough teachers to be franchisees? I mean, this is really going to be hard. And it turns out the teachers were the worst franchisees.
Right.
The best franchisees were salespeople who could go in and talk to schools and tell them. And so allowing salespeople to have this opportunity to leverage their sales skills to help students get, better educations, or in our case here, like Kim was just talking about, helping salespeople help people solve a problem at home is really gratifying and very fulfilling, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, we're all salespeople at something, right?
That's right.
So Leah, I love talking about Blue Moon because it has been on fire, like literally doubling in growth over the last year. That's crazy, right? So when you talk to people all the time, like what's some of the most frequently asked questions that people come to you with?
Yeah, well, and we spend a lot of time together, bird's eye view, A to Z, right? And so when someone engages, they have a really good idea of all things Blue Moon. And I walk them through the day in the life of all of those wonderful things of which we can touch on as well. I would say probably the initial question that most have is, how do I price the value for everything in a home? And I like to bring peace of mind to that right away. There's no prior experience required for this. It's a minor learning curve. We'll never be experts in pricing everything that we can encounter in a home, which makes it really fun and unique. We have a phenomenal team in place with training. They train on all of the fundamentals. You'll find really early on that a lot of your top selling items are very repetitive. So it's just a minor learning curve. And there's a standard set menu pricing for a lot of those items that are not of high value. So a lot of streamlined processes here that allow us to move 3 to 5 times faster than the competition in a market that's not really saturated. It's still fragmented. So we really get to be the experts in our space. And we take a lot of pride in that. We also teach you how to be the detective. It's a very quick process of research and elimination. It happens much more quickly than one would imagine. We have all the tools in place to assist with that. And it's a very small percentage of items that you're really going to spend your time pricing. So for instance, if you come along that painting and you are pretty sure that that's an original, and you walked through that quick process of elimination, and then we teach you to go tap your local market expert. They're excited. It's their passion as well. They absolutely want to see what you have and give you their expert opinion. And that's one of the first relationships that our owners put in place in their local market. Small percentage of time, and believe it or not, they won't have to do that more as often as one would imagine.
I love that you talked about the speed that enables an owner to do, because if you think about the last year, who could have foreseen the real estate market? And when you think about owners who honestly they do what they love, but we're all in business for a reason, and they get paid faster when they're not held up by somebody who's like, well, I'm going to need 3 months to clear out this house. I'll catch you later. I mean, that's a very important feature and a value in market to help a realtor move a house faster. Right?
Thank you. That's exactly it. A lot of our clients are seeking to move quickly, and they have a need to a huge degree that is just a tremendous undertaking for them. So we get to step in and bring them peace of mind and solve that very quickly.
And just going back to the advantages of a franchise, so as that brand continues to expand across the country, that allows Blue Moon to go talk to national real estate companies like a Berkshire Hathaway or a Coldwell Banker or a Remax and say, let us be the preferred supplier. We can do all of your estate sales wherever we have locations. So far, we only have 50. We'll have 100 by the end of the year. but we can do that. As an individual, if you want to get into a business by yourself, you can deal with your local realtor. That's good. And you have to build some credibility. But that national account opportunity should drive more customers to you down the road. And that's yet another advantage of a franchise that I think all the brands really enjoy, right? They all enjoy some kind of national account or referral process.
Absolutely.
Very much so.
Right. So Luke, I don't think we can get through something like this without addressing the COVID factor, right? I mean, for people who wanted to start a business last year and maybe they got far enough along in a restaurant brand, a travel brand, a fitness brand, your heart breaks for them because that was their dream and that's what they wanted to do. And then crap, right? So let's talk about the business. Like how does senior care fare in all of this?
Actually, COVID was an interesting thing for us because there was that initial panic when the world shut down in April and May of last year. But when we realized that this wasn't going to be like a 30, 60-day speed bump and it was going to have some length to it, it was on us to adapt. Now, thank God that we have the technology that we have today because we could leverage the technology and still deliver our business model very effectively. Instead of doing face-to-face meetings, we were doing Zoom meetings. Instead of doing physical tours, we have a video library with thousands of videos of facilities all over the country. So we were able to do very effective virtual tours. And then the facilities themselves really stepped up in developing protocols for a safe moving in experience. So as early as August of last year, we saw our numbers increase month to month over our 2019 numbers. And I think the longer COVID stuck around, people were okay to quarantine for 30 days, even 60 days. Not 6 months, not 8 months. Or people took their loved ones into quarantine with them and found that they weren't equipped to handle their long-term needs. So all of that generated inquiries about our business, and our owners were prepared because of the extra training that we all did to adapt to this situation, and we're able to deliver. So we actually ended the year slightly up. I mean, nothing to really brag about, but given the circumstances, it is something to brag about because we were able to end on a positive note, keep helping people, because the odd thing about aging is that you can't stop the clock. People get sick at inconvenient times, and pandemic or not, people still needed our help. So it was great that we were able to deliver. But like I said, thank God we were able to leverage the technology that we have today to be able to deliver on our business model. That was a huge win for us.
And listen, the platform of Best Life Brands, where ComForCare and CarePatrol and Blue Moon sit, that opportunity, Luke, you just talked about the quarantine situation. Some homes required a resident to quarantine for 14 days before they would be admitted. And so our CarePatrol franchisees reached out to our ComForCare franchisee and nearby and said, I need help, I need care. This person needs 14 days of quarantine. And so the brands talk to each other, which is the dream of what Best Life Brands is all about. We had been doing it a little bit, but COVID pushed it a little bit more aggressively in certain markets because of that exact requirement.
Yeah, I think a lot of lessons were learned through COVID. I think that whenever a situation like this happens, as human beings, we're forced to adapt. And I think the longer it stuck around, the more solutions we got. I know CarePatrol, we did a tremendous amount of training to our even existing owners because nobody's ever been through a pandemic situation like this. So we had to rethink, how are we going to do things? How can we help our owners? How do we help the community at large? And it really was a great testament to the brand and the company itself that we were able to pull together and do the kind of work that needed to get done.
Yeah, a whole support system, right?
It doesn't hurt either in our situation to have a co-founder sitting at the brand president level who's been with the business, who in essence invented the industry and has been around the business for 20 years. It didn't hurt to have Becky Bongiovanni and her spouse, their experience in the founding of the business as well, right?
Yeah, they were not going to shut their heads in the sand and hope that went away. from day one, they were looking at solutions. How do we help our facilities? We delivered masks, we delivered hand sanitizers, protective equipment, but it was all hands on deck.
Kim, do you want to add to that from a ComForCare perspective? I mean, it wasn't without its bumps, but I feel like there, navigating COVID was, that's just one other factor when you think about home care and seniors, and it was in the news, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing, when anytime you're working with seniors, you always have to be careful. So that part was not new, but obviously the level with which we had to be careful. And so, I mean, I can't claim any credit for it. Our team was really nimble in rolling out everything from, new safety procedures and guidelines, making sure we had access to personal protective equipment. It was really a pivot. And even from a marketing standpoint, you can't shake hands and kiss babies to build relationships and market your business today. So that's where a lot of the programs and kind of that shift took place. And our owners had that support through that. And ongoing, and even caregiver recruitment strategies and interviewing and hiring, all of these things have changed so much in the last 12 months. I don't know a lot of other business models out there that can claim that their owners were up 7% in 2020 over 2019, whereas our owners can't. And I think that says a lot. The need for care continues. It is an essential service. And then having that toolbox and those resources in your back pocket, not having to worry. I mean, I don't know how independent business owners do it because it's so big and you feel so overwhelmed. And that's where you've got specialized departments in every area of the business, making sure everything's really buttoned down. And, we've got owners that knocked it out of the park and had some of their best years ever.
It's amazing. And then Leah, you think about estate sales, like how am I going to do an estate sales safely, right? Tell me about that pivot.
Yeah, so COVID was interesting for all of us, right? No one knew what to expect. And for Blue Moon, it was definitely interesting. So we pivoted very quickly. We wanted to ensure that we were practicing all precautions in the home. We were at capacity according to CDC guidelines. We pivoted with technology. Our shoppers could schedule the time in which they wanted to show up. Instead of the day of everyone standing in the yard with their cup of coffee, everyone knows everyone, they're sharing their stories, they're talking about their good finds and passions. We all miss that tremendously, and they still see each other in passing, and we're looking forward to getting back to that very quickly. But we're practicing all precautions. It's working beautifully. Given the type of need that we meet, time doesn't always wait for you, right? And COVID or no COVID, now's the time. And in many instances, COVID further accelerated the need. We saw a significant increase. Even in the month of November alone, we had a 47% increase in revenue. When we shut down for 30 days in March, our owners were still educating. They were still scheduling those sales in anticipation for doors to open again, and they did very quickly. Our revenue in April was absolutely up. It was even stronger than what it was prior to shutting down in March in the month of February. So we saw a lot of wonderful things happening. We were happy and thankful to be there to stand in the gap to help meet that need. And with that further acceleration, we've seen retirees, right? They weren't going to hang in there anymore for the 2-3 years that they anticipated. They had two agendas. It was get next to the children so that we can support them with the grandkids. That was part of our plan anyway. Now's the time. They really need our help. So you see a lot of those instances and scenarios, a lot of C-level executives that want to enter into entrepreneurship. They want to take their success in their own hands versus corporate America and really build their asset in their future. And they're looking for that peace of mind in doing so, right? There were a lot of layoffs, a lot of new divorcees, and a lot of commercial opportunities arose as well, with 1 in 5 small businesses shutting down. And we were happy to be there to help.
Yeah. You see all different perspectives on that.
Yeah. So just yesterday, I happened to have a chance to visit with the #1 Blue Moon franchisee in the system, and two stories came out of that just kind of adds to what Leah just said. Mm-hmm. The first story was I was asking how sales were going, and he was explaining how people have to stand in line and they have to social distance. But he had a sale on Saturday and had 200 people in line at the opening 200.
Wow.
And I said, how long does that take? Like that person that was back in the back of the line, he said, oh, about 3 hours. You know, the person that stood in line got into the home in about 3 hours. And customers are willing to do that because they want to see this estate sale. They've been seeing the advertising. They know the items. And to Leah's point, that's a new process, because a year ago, 200 people would have just flooded that house. And people would have been fighting. So, but the customers adapted and the business still runs. And he said, I'm amazed by that, because I never thought this would work, and this by appointment, and it works really, really well. The second piece was, I talked to him about the fact that I think it was somebody that Leah worked with who came into the network back in August, went through training, and was the 5th highest franchisee for revenue in the month of January in 4 months. And all the training's virtual. And this franchisee who's number one, who's been around for a long time, said, I never even thought that we could virtually train a franchisee on how to price goods for an estate sale. But here we are doing it. And not only that, but people are doing it successfully and are showing up in the top 5 franchisees in the company in month 4. So, you know, just really fascinating stories about, and I told the franchisee, like, that guy doesn't know it any other way. Like, he knows by appointment, he knows virtual training. He doesn't know it any other way, and it worked out really well for him. So a lot of companies are going through that. A lot of franchisors adapted. And I think, you know, I'm really proud of the teams that we have at Best Life Brands, because they did move quickly, because we were getting demand. We were getting people, Kim and Luke and Leah were talking to Candace, that wanted to go now and want to get open to help take care of people in this COVID crisis. And we were able to help fulfill that.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, it was their time to research and say, okay, well, I may not be able to do what I, you know, originally had in mind, but now I can spend this time training or getting my ducks in a row, and whatever view that looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
JJ, you are not the original founder of any of our brands, and your 1-year anniversary yesterday. So happy anniversary. Nothing like joining a team right before COVID. I mean, literally. Yeah. And so thank you for being our fearless leader in a very shaky time. But you have a long history in franchising, as we talked about, and I'd love to your perspective on, you know, what makes senior care such a special niche.
Yeah, so we've talked about it a few times here, like the mission orientation to our franchisees. You know, I've worked in several different brands. I told you earlier that I worked in a, you know, after school education system. And look, to use that as an example, you know, when a child's struggling in school, the whole family's broken. Like, there's just nothing good going on until that child can do better in school. And to be able to solve those problems was really valuable. It was the most fulfilling thing I ever did in my career. But here I am getting to do it again, this time helping sort of the same parents who were taking care of those kids. You know, they've aged now, and the kids are now adults, and they're trying to figure out what to do and to solve that problem for them through this continuum of senior care, either in-home care like Kim talked about, or finding the best and safest community that Luke talked about at CarePatrol, and helping in transition services like Leah talked about, because these things are very difficult. And look, I don't think Best Life Brands is done. I know Best Life Brands isn't done. This senior care continuum, you know, we've got a couple of other acquisitions that we'd like to make. There will be more franchises in our list. And, you know, could we get into nutrition or mobility or home health? There's a whole bunch of different places that Best Life Brands can expand to. And the team's really excited about that, because while it would be awesome to catch a senior at the very beginning of their adventure, maybe through nutrition or financial planning at the age of 50, and then just sort of pass them through the brands all the way until end of life. That's not going to happen every time. It'll happen occasionally, but every once in a while we'll catch somebody in the middle, and then we'll take them through the continuum that way. To have that opportunity to just have franchisees be able to help and hand off through the continuum is something that's really exciting for us, and I think will be a great comfort to a lot of families.
There's that symbiosis between our brands, and I love that. Like, it's I've not seen that before. I had the pleasure of being able to work here, but where you do have, you know, where one leaves off, the other picks up, and that full continuum. And I just, anyhow, for what it's worth, I think that's fantastic. And I love the way our owners for our various brands work together to provide better value for clients all the way around.
From day one, they partner up. They market on each other's behalf. They partner up with each other's referral sources so they can build a bigger, better, stronger network out there to meet their need wherever they are. And it's tremendous for all of our owners right out of the gate. They're out of the gate strong.
Yeah. It's an interwoven exchange, and it's just going to keep growing. So there's so much to share on it. I do want to get to audience questions in a minute. And you guys, if you have questions, hop over to the Q&A section and pop your question in there, and I'll get to that. And if you have a question about a specific brand, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll just answer it more generally, and that's fine too. So while they're doing that, I want to just get from the panelists. Obviously, senior care is in it for the long haul. And when you're talking to people about the future of senior care and stats and trends, like what kind of stats do you hold on to as like, this is here to stay, this is why I'm doing this?
I mean, I'll start. I mean, because I only have one, so you guys will steal it if I don't go first. I mean, I'm new to the industry, so I mean, you gotta cut me a break here. I'm the young guy for tenure. So look, the 10,000 people a day turning 65 is the silver tsunami, as they say, from an age perspective. And that number is it's going to continue for the next 20 years. And so this industry is this size today, and it's a percentage of the population. It's going to be 20% of the population 20 years from now, and the population is going to grow. So it's even become a bigger number. It's growing in percentage, and it's growing in total. And so the opportunity to get into business, and look, there's not very many businesses that you can sit here today and look 20 years out and say, my demographic's going to get better. I mean, how many babies are going to get born 20 years from now? I don't know, but I do know that 10,000 people a day are going to turn 65 for the next 20 years. That's a guarantee.
And to piggyback on that, because you totally stole mine, by the way, but the resale value. So anybody coming in today is probably not going to be in business for 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, you have to retire, and any good business model is going to have an exit strategy, and you're building value and you're building equity. And to know that by the time you're ready to retire, that value is still, and that demand is still going to be there. I mean, there's no way around it. You can look at the numbers and it speaks for itself. So from a long-term business plan, exit strategy, retirement goal perspective, this industry's got all of that.
Kim, that's so valuable. It's such a trite phrase that one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits is begin with the end in mind. My college roommate started a rub company, like spices. Like, it's an awesome rub. It's beautiful. It tastes great on salmon. What's he going to do with that? Like, it's only going to get so big. And so how does he exit? Where's the valuation? And that is such a valuable comment that you just made. So valuable.
And on the CarePatrol side, what's interesting is that because we're in a silver tsunami, and because we're going to be in a 20-year run of double-digit growth, the number of facilities out there right now will not handle the number of people that have to be in it. So as an industry, we are in a growth mode. New facilities are getting built every single day. So as we explain to owners now, the territory that you are purchasing with the number of beds is going to change. It's only going to grow, which is going to make your business more valuable. And again, to speak to Kim's point, that's the goal of any entrepreneur, is to build a valuable asset. And the market will help you do that because the numbers are there. I mean, if you look at the actuaries and that do this type of stuff for insurance companies, they know the math. And, it's an industry that's not going to go away. It's not stopping in a tsunami. It's not stopping in a pandemic. It's nowhere near. So when people look at different businesses, you always want to look, is there a need for it? How big is the need? And how long is the need going to be around? And senior care checks all 3 boxes.
There it goes.
Interesting fun fact for estate sales, it is significantly increasing for millennials as well. So talk about any age, it's catching on, and it really is there to service all as well, and it's not going anywhere. And to a great point of JJ and Kim, succession planning is crucial. You always want to have your exit plan, and being part of a franchise system, they are phenomenal on preparing you for that, for teaching, training, coaching for that, because there is a way to do that. I've seen some business owners have wonderful buyers walk away that were really excited about that business, but were your finances prepared and for how long? There's a lot that goes into that we're more than happy to coach our owners on as well, so that they can really prepare and exit successfully and really gain that return for that asset that they built.
See, that was so good. That's why we let you go last. We knew you had something to say saved up.
That's why.
Okay, so questions are coming in, and just so you know, move from the chat to the Q&A, and I can see them all in one place. So if you had a question in the chat, just pop over to the Q&A box and we'll get you there. So here's one. Do I buy a Best Life Brands franchise and own all of these companies, or just one of the brands?
So we haven't had anybody do all three yet. We've had people talk to everybody and have centered in on one or two. So we're still working through that. I think if somebody wants to be interested in all the Best Life Brands franchises, it could be 8 or 10 before we're all done here. So that's going to make you pretty busy. But I think our general recommendation is get focused on a brand, find one that you really, really like. The opportunity to complement that will be down the road, and it may not just be with the brands we have today, but maybe even with other brands.
Yeah, I think what they were asking, like, if Best Life Brands is a franchise, and we're, just to clarify, we don't sell it.
Yeah, we're just kind of an umbrella portfolio company that has all these great brands underneath it.
Yeah, but like to Kim's point, they all work together, and there's an ecosystem there to know and to leverage. So that is worth noting. I was looking into this before the webinar, and I noticed that I need to know my liquid assets. What does that mean? Oh, I like that question. I think that's a good question. Kim or JJ, I think that.
Let Kim go.
Sure. So liquid assets is going to be cash money that you would have available to you. It can also include your retirement, even if you're not planning on withdrawing it. I will say that we're somewhat flexible on the financial requirements, and a conversation is always worthwhile. At the end of the day, a lot of people are leveraging financing options, and we definitely have some contacts and introductions we can make that can help you look at what may make sense. Our goal is to always make sure that you're protected and you're not getting in over your head financially, and that's why contacting you with the experts, and they can help you look at SBA loan options, which they have some pretty fantastic programs out there right now. Retirement rollovers, home equity loans, lines of credit. There's so many different options, but a lot of them are going to look for some level of liquidity, which is why we tend to kind of have that random standard, or maybe not so random, but a conversation is always worthwhile.
An easy way to remember it is any financial instrument that you can turn into cash within 30 days is a liquid asset.
Yeah, that is a good rule of thumb. Okay, are these home-based businesses or in an office setting?
CarePatrol is home-based.
Blue Moon is home-based.
ComForCare does require a small office. It's a little creepy to have caregivers come over and interview them at your house, but nothing too big. In real estate right now, you can definitely get pretty cheap, and it's not like you're looking for something on Main Street because your clients don't come to you. I mean, 200 to 500 square feet is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, you need a place for trainings and all that, right? Staff meetings, okay.
Although a lot of that's being done virtually now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one is for Blue Moon. What does a typical week look like for a Blue Moon franchise owner?
That's a great question. And really the day in the life of, our brand president has this phenomenal statement that really throws it in perspective. And he'll say, hey, We were at a big annual conference, right? Everyone's there. And he says, I don't want to shock you, but is it news to you that you are actually not in the estate sales business? You're in the business of sales and marketing your estate sales business that then provides an estate sales return, right? Or service. And that makes perfect sense. It is a lot of relationship building out there in your marketplace, networking. Sky is the limit. You have a lot of referral sources that are your biggest fans out there, real estate agents, probate attorneys, financial advisors, any providers within that senior and retirement realm. I love this type of referral. Once educated, it can come from the local coffee shop. I lived that day in life for a long time, and so every day is a new day, and it's that type of service or need where they're happy, they're relieved that they now know about it. And then we look for leadership. We want you to put your teams in place. You can start out with 3 to 5 part-time employees, no salaries required. They're paid out after you reconcile a sale. It works really beautifully. And then we want you to run your teams. Let your teams oversee the staging and the pricing and the actual sales. You want to pull back the reins on that as soon as you can so you can focus as much as you can on sales and marketing. My best recommendation is 30 hours a week on relationship building, 20 if you have to. But you'll find that it's from day one or very early on that your key employees really want to step up to the plate. And I tell people, you cannot overcomplicate this brand. Many try, and they like to try and do so, but you really can't. There's nothing that you can't delegate onto a key employee. And in terms of staffing infrastructure, you can get as creative as you desire. There's a lot of flexibility and versatility with this brand. Good question.
Yeah,
it is. And listen, I think that goes back again to making sure the brand or the business that you pick fits the personal lifestyle and things that you want to do. And I always use the example of Dunkin' Donuts. Not that many people opening Dunkin' Donuts franchises today because they have so many already. But, you know, if you don't want to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to make donuts, then it's probably not a good franchise for you. And that's what you're going to have to do if you want to be a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee. To Leah's point about Blue Moon, you know, during the week, you're going to be out there trying to find your estate sales for the end of the month. And then there's going to be sales on the weekend. Will you have to be at every sale on Saturday and Sunday? Probably not. You'll have a team. But there are going to be weekends involved in Blue Moon. And if you do not want to work on weekends or you can't work on weekends, it's probably not a good business concept for you. So those are the kind of things that you have to explore and make sure it fits for you as you think about a franchise.
Yeah, and I love that we put a plan in place that's comfortable for you. Each owner comes to us with unique desires and needs. Someone might desire to hire or enter into this concept with those full-time key people in place. Exactly. It can look really different for everyone. Absolutely be prepared to step in if you want to. If you're going to be fully immersed full-time without those key people in place, absolutely be willing to show up on the weekend and scale back as soon as you can. But for others, you can start out with those key employees in place from day one as well, cross-train, ensure that the next one is always ready to step up to the plate, always have a multitude of leaders on your team, right? And so you can get creative with it.
Okay, would I have other owners in my same location? I don't know if this one is about a specific brand, but I think we can address how the territories work, JJ.
No, so in each of our brands, you get a protected territory. That's not necessarily common in franchising, so it's a good question to ask any franchisor that you pursue. But with our businesses, you have an exclusivity in your territory for the brand that you operate in. So if I'm sitting here in Pittsburgh today, and so if I work with Leah and I have the Blue Moon Estate Sales franchise for Greater Pittsburgh, then there will be no other franchisees in my market. Same thing with ComForCare, same thing with CarePatrol. They're all exclusive territories, which is why it's urgent. I mean, if you're interested, you know, it's important for you to talk, because most candidates that these guys talk to, 90% of their decision starts with geography. Like, I live here, so I want to have my business here. And a lot of times, you know, the franchise may not be available. That's the great part about a business like Blue Moon. It's just starting and there's, you know, the map's empty, where Luke and Kim are dealing with a little bit of a fuller map.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And they go quickly. These territories go very quickly. It is not uncommon for us to introduce 2 to 6 new owners into our family on a monthly basis. So,
right.
Yeah.
I had 3 new territories licensed in one market in the last 2 weeks. And I know I've got 3 other people looking in the same general vicinity right now. I'm like, we're going to have to fight it out.
It's always the way, right, Kim? It's quiet in that area, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to go there.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is we're not like supercuts, so you can put one every 2 miles down the road. These territories are geographical territories, and once they're gone, they're gone. So,
Yeah.
That's a big key.
And
For
research
sure.
for viability as well. I know, like for us
Yes,
specifically, we're
very much
looking
so.
at number of seniors, we're looking at household income, we're looking at
Yeah.
referral sources. So, I mean, all those things are taken into consideration. And I know the woman who does our mapping has been doing this for like 15 plus years.
Yeah.
If something's not viable, I mean, we've got big old chunks of territory across the country where it just says not viable. She doesn't feel like it's a good market. We wouldn't stick somebody in a place where we didn't feel like the opportunity was truly very strong.
Yeah, same with CarePatrol.
Likewise with Blue Moon, these are large territories. They're very generous, but they also set you up for success in terms of demographics and so that you don't stretch yourself too thin as well.
Mhm.
So I have somebody calling me out on this. You mentioned in the ad that it was meaningful work or a meaningful career, which I know that, and I'll get to the question, then I'll tell you something. Or something to that effect. Are most franchisees happy with their chosen business? And I'm kind of laughing because when I first started, I was not coming from franchising and I wanted to know why people got into this business. And so I did a survey and I said, well, how did you end up in senior care? And I thought I would be able to leverage that in some marketing materials and that kind of thing. And most people said I got into ComForCare, for example, because I had a relevant experience with a parent, or I just wanted to give back and I wanted to do something meaningful. Those are their words. So our franchisees told me that. And so I laugh because I use that in marketing as that emotion part. And I'll say like, you can do something meaningful with your career and something you're truly is in your heart. And so when somebody's asking like, are they happy with their chosen business? JJ, I think your perspective is good here, but we measure their output like in NPS and those in Trustpilot and those kinds of things. And I don't think we would have good scores if you didn't have happy franchisees, right?
No, I mean, it is a really healthy, happy franchise system that, again, very mission oriented. And I've worked in 4 different brands. These guys have all worked in different brands too. What's fascinating to me is the attitude and personality of these franchisees. Not only do they want to help the clients, but they want to help each other. And look, there's peer groups in other franchise businesses, and I dealt with that. But I also dealt with a lot of franchisees who were very interested in themselves, and if they had a really good idea, they didn't necessarily want to share it because that was good for their business, and if everyone else did it, then it would get diluted. That is not the case in these brands because, again, the attitude of these people as franchisees are very giving and they're very philanthropic. They want to make money and they want to be successful and build a valuation in their business. But it's a different personality here. And I think I'm not embarrassed by your representation of this being a meaningful business because I think the franchisees certainly represent that, guys. What do you think?
Absolutely. And you still very much so get that family-oriented feel. You are not a stranger when you are plugged in at Blue Moon on all levels. You have a lot of continual contact, not just with your support team, with our other new owners, with your franchise advisory council, with your brand president. And that does not happen at all concepts. Every day we think out loud, talk out loud, create out loud. We're very innovative together and everyone brings their best practices. So you are not a stranger when you launch in this system.
And I don't have this data for all 3 brands, but we just did it with ComForCare with the franchisees in that network. And we asked the question, I've only been here for a year, but they've asked it for the last 4 years, would you do this again? And, the percentages are in the high 80s. Now, some might say, well, that means there's 20 or so franchisees that said they wouldn't do it again. And that's probably true. There are probably some people that wish they would have done something different. But that number is pretty significant. I mean, we've all dealt with survey questions. If you ask people if they like chocolate or vanilla ice cream, you're going to get a 50-50 split. So to get high 80s on a business, I mean, ask employees if they're satisfied with their job. And if you get 20%, that's a really high number. So it's a really strong endorsement on the brand for sure. Long before I was here and will be that way long after I'm gone.
The other thing too is I know almost people sometimes I think feel intimidated about entering a discovery process. Like, when are you going to ask me for money, or when are you going to ask me to make a commitment? It's not like that. No solid franchise brand is going to take you through a process that's driven that way. It's about exploration, it's about fit. And, you know, part of the process is talking to the owners and having that opportunity. You know, it's an awarding process. It's all about fit and having those meaningful conversations. When you're at that point, you've got to be educated enough about the brand before you start reaching out and having those conversations. That's why it's a step in the process and you're given a password. But you shouldn't sign a franchise agreement with any brand without talking to some of the franchisees first.
Right.
And franchising, when you think about it, franchising is a true form of partnership. I mean, we have to be the right concept for you, but you have to be the right operator for us. And that's why we call it an awarding process, because it does have to be a right fit on both sides of the fence.
That's a great point. I mean, it's a dynamic shift, right? You don't buy a franchise and become a customer of something. It is a value exchange. Like we get ideas from the system all the time, and they get
Absolutely.
our stuff. So it's definitely a two-way street. So you guys were coming up on the hour. I can't believe that, honestly. Like I just kind of did a time check and I can't believe that. We could really talk all night. I feel like there's so much to this industry. For those attending, I would invite you to keep learning about it. There's our team is available for questions. They do this all day long. You're not going to bother anybody by asking a question or reaching out, and I'll give you ways to do that when I send the recording. In the meantime, I would invite you to follow us on LinkedIn. We have a massive announcement coming out soon. I wish I could tell you about it, but I cannot. But it is coming very, very soon about a really, really exciting announcement. So if I piqued your interest, please follow along on LinkedIn and you'll get that update as soon as we're able to. But thank you to my panelists. I treasure you. I treasure your input. And I just feel like we really had a rich conversation tonight. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.
Good job. Yep. Great job.
Thanks, everybody.